49b1, the last line on the left-hand corner in the art scroll.
I got it.
Okay, so the bottom line of this Gemara hinges on this. When does an animal lose its name? That's it. When is a
Lose
par
its what?
name? When does it lose its name? Meaning, when is a par and bull still called a bull or not called a bull? When is a seh, a sheep, still called a sheep or not? In other words, before it's slaughtered or after it's slaughtered. And there are nafkaminas, and that is, once you got that built into your head, that in essence is the entire Gemara. And that's what the Gemara is going back and forth on. So now let's take a look. Ibayaluhu, shochat v'meis. If a Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur slaughtered his personal chatas bull, remember he brought a chatas on behalf of himself and his brothers Kahanim, but unfortunately passes away. He gets a heart attack, and he passes away before going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and sprinkling the blood on the curtain in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So obviously somebody has to replace it, right? So, Ma'ahu sheikones acha b'domai. What's the halacha if the replacement Kohen Gadol now enters the Kodesh HaKadoshim, but with the blood of the original par, the blood of the original bull? In other words, now because the first Kohen already slaughtered a bull and the blood is here, he said, okay, I'll pick up the blood and I'll keep going. Is that okay? Mi amrinon, do we say, the pasuk says bipar, which means afilu bidomai shel par, when the pasuk says that the kohen has to enter with a bull as a chatas offering. Okay, does that mean even with the blood of a bull means that even it's been slaughtered by the previous Kohen Gadol? It's not your par, but it's the par of a Kohen Gadol. It retains its name of a par, so even the blood of your predecessor could be used, or no? Oy Dilma, bipar beloy damei shel par. The blood with the bull applies when it's a bull. The blood of a bull is not the bull. So therefore, you, the new Kohen Gadol, have got to go back and shecht a new bull, and it has to be yours. Rabbi Chanina, the par beloy damei shel par. The par means, but without the blood of the par, which means you got to slaughter your own. And you're allowed to use your predecessors. Rabbi Ami Omar, bepar beloy damei shel par. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka Omar, bepar afilu b'damei shel par, and you're allowed to use the, what do you call the predecessor? So what do you see over here? When did it retain its name par, bull? Only when it's alive. But the blood of the bull is no longer the name par, but that's just dam hapar. And therefore, according to that understanding, therefore the new Kohen Gadol would have to slaughter a new carbon and start the whole process again. Or no, bipar means all of it, afilu dam of the par, all the way through, and therefore I'm allowed to use the Kohen Gadol who died, his carbon. Rabbi Ami challenged Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka. We learned this regarding carbon Pesach. People are allowed to register on a Pesach, on the Pesach kid or lamb, and withdraw it until the Shechita. Once it's slaughtered, that's it. No more registering or deregistering. Pray the Gemara, but if it's true that just like by Yom Kippur, the slaughtered par is still called a bull, right? Which would mean that you don't have a new Kohen Gadol doesn't have to redo it. It still has the same bull. Then by extension, the carbon Pesach's kid in the lamb is also called a seh, The Mishnah should be talking about only until you're allowed to register on it and deregister until the blood is thrown, because the Torah is still using the Lashon V'seh. Says the Gemara, we're on 49b2. Shani Hasam, here it's different. Diksiv, mi yois, mi seh. Over there by the Karban Pesach, it says, mi yois, mi seh. They may draw from being for a lamb or a kid. And we learn out the word mi yois, mi seh to mean michi yusa deseh, in the lifetime of the kid and the lamb, as long as it's still alive. So that is it. Or the way Rashi says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom. Rashi says, Mi yois mi seh, bi yoid sheyuse kaima. But only in the time when it's still here, it's still kayam, right? Yistamu v'loy mishchoted. You're allowed to register or deregister, but not when it's slaughtered. So therefore, there's a Gezeras HaKosov over there that tells us that it stops by Shechita, even though it may very well retain its name of a Seh all the way to the blood. Mashenke by Yom Kippur, where we don't have this limitation. So therefore, the second kind, the replacement Kohen Gadol, is allowed to use the blood from the par of the first Kohen Gadol because it retains the name of par. Okay, good. Says the Gemara. I got another question. Let's see if I can mess this up again. Ain Poidin. We all know that you have to redeem a firstborn donkey, Peta Korechem, right? Because the donkeys were there in Mitzrayim, etc. So you have to go ahead and redeem it. You have to redeem it onto a set. Now the Gemara, the Brisa says, but in redeeming, you're not allowed to redeem a firstborn donkey, loy be'egel, not with a calf, loy be'chaya, not with an undomestic animal, not with a deer, for an example. And now the question, v'loy b'shchuta, and not with a slaughtered lamb or kid. Wait a minute. What is this slaughtered called? It's called a lamb or a kid, a seh. And yet I'm telling you, you can't be paid from it. What do you see over here? That after Shechita, it loses its name. Okay, that's the question. Right there is the question. But let's keep going. The rest of the prices. V'loy b'treifa, not with a treifa, not an animal that's going to die within 12 months. V'loy b'klayim, and not with a crossbreed. V'loy b'kfi, not with a koi. A koi is a union usually of a male goat and a female deer, for all intents and purposes. It's an interesting breed. Ella, the Gemara in many other places goes through to try to explain what exactly a key is. Anyways, Ella said only with the normal lamb or kid. We see from this Baraisa that once it's slaughtered, v'loy b'shchuta, it no longer has the name of Biseh, a regular lamb or kid. Proof positive that once you slaughter, it loses its name, which means the new Kohen Gadol should have to bring his own animal, because it's no longer, the blood that's there is no longer have the name par, and it's not his par. Says the Gemara, no, you can't bring proof from here. Shani Hasam, the Yolav Semi Pesach, the laws of Peta Korechem, of redeeming the firstborn donkey, are learned out of the laws of the Karban Pesach, because they share the same word of Seh B'Seh. And just like the Karban Pesach, we said is different, that even if it retains its name, nonetheless, you can't register only up to the point of the slaughter. Said over here, you're limited to the redemption only up to the time of the slaughter. It doesn't tell us anything about Yom Kippur. So says the Gemara, but if that's true, that there's a Gezeres Shava between the Karban Pesach and the redeeming of the firstborn donkey, the Peta Korechem, if that's the case, the laws should be exactly the same, just like a Karban Pesach has to be a male animal, unblemished, and in its first year, Afkan, also over here by the redemption, Zelcha, Tom, Ben Shana should also need the same exact layout. And for the Gemara, no, that now you're going too far. It's a gezerish shabbat. It's a comparison because it says seh b'seh, but it's not meaning an all or nothing. Talmud Loima, it says tifte riba. It says you shall redeem twice with regard to the Petah Korechet. To teach us it's expansive. You could redeem it. It doesn't need to be male. It doesn't need to be unblemished, and it doesn't need to be in its first year. Says the Gemara, he tifta riba, but if you're going to expand afilu kula nami, then do everything. The treifa, the chaya, the egel, the kli, the kalayim, all the things that the Brisa before said you're not allowed to use to redeem. Now you're telling me we're being expansive because it says tifta, be expansive completely and allow for everything to be used to redeem the animal, the donkey. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, if they're going to be so expansive, then why did the Torah go out of its way to tell us, seh? I want you to redeem it on a seh. So obviously, the Torah is limiting you to a seh, but with tifta, it's giving you an expansive view within the seh. It doesn't have to be a year old. It doesn't have to be unblemished. It doesn't have to be male. Very good. We're now on today's daf. Nun Amud Aleph 50a1. Eisvei Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka l'Rav Ami. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka challenged Rav Ami. The pasuk says, "V'hayitzias kol hapar." He should remove the entire bull. This one clearly, the pasuk is making it very clear that a slaughtered bull still retains the name bull. So says the Gemara, no, Rav Ami would tell you, Shahaitzias kuloi. It just means you should remove the entire carcass of the bull. It doesn't come to teach us that that a slaughtered animal retains the name bull. It means that that all of its remains needs to be pulled out of the camp, right? Or the top Rashi on the page. Alma b'hoitzias kolabar alma la'aka shchita par karilei. Says the Gemara, l'hoitzias kula tirutu kolaima lav ikre par. Not that it's called a par. Elahachi kama yoitzias kola nishumimenu. Remove all the remainders. That's all it is. So says the Gemara, but the pasuk says as para chatos v'seira chatos. Here you see that it's slaughtered and it's still called a bull and a seira he goat. Amara Papa. Now we're talking about here. Ba'aru basu beresh the kula alma loy pligi. Concerning it with the hide, the r, the bus of the meat, the perish and the intestines, which are intact. Even Rav Ami would agree that it's called a bull or a goat in Minat Torah. It's what he call it. It's definitely called a thing. Ki pligi b'dam. We're talking about the blood. There's something different between the actual physical hide, meat, and intestines, as opposed to the liquid dam. Dam is different. Mar sava dam ikre par. What Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka says, I don't care, even the blood itself is called the bull, because the blood is the chayim, is the life. Umar sava dam lo ikre par. No, blood is no longer classified as a par, as a bull. Says the Gemara, Amar Abashi, Mistabra Kamandi, Amar Dam Ikre Par. It's more reasonable to say that the one who says that the blood itself is called a bull. Why? Because the pasuk says, with this shall Aaron come into the heichal, the holy, with the par ben baka, young bull. Atu b'karne malale. Does the Kohen Gadol lead the bull in by its horns? No, he doesn't lead in a live animal. El b'dama. It means he slaughtered the bull and brought in his dam. It's blood. V'tori da par, and it's called a par. So here you see that even the blood is called a par. The idach and Rav Ami. How's he going to explain it? This is an excellent explanation. with what offering is Aaron qualified and mutter now to come into the Hekol? The young bull has a chatas. In order to become qualified, he has to bring the live bull and slaughter it as his offering. By the way, this is just very interesting. It says, Bezois Yavai Aaron Ela Kodesh. This is in a few. This was in the last couple of weeks' parshas. Bezois, if you look at it, is bigamatria 410, corresponding to the amount of years that the first base of Mikdash stood. And the Mefarshim are say this is the remiza in the Torah to the first base with Bezois. With this, for 410 years, Yavai Aaron El Kodesh, Aaron will come into the Kodesh. And we have to remember that after the first base of Mikdash, the Holy of Holies did not have the Aaron HaKodesh anymore. So this is essentially what it was. Okay, now the Gemara has gone back and forth whether Dam is classified as a par. Okay, but this now we got the problem that even if the blood is called, the Dam is called a par, right? Nonetheless, what are we doing with the second Kohen Gadol, the replacement Kohen Gadol? Let's learn it out from the rule of a chatas whose owner has died. And the rule is that a chatas whose owner has died goes to its death, meaning you let it go die, you just let it out, you leave it out there to die. The reason for this is because a chatas is personal. It's a personal aveira. If the guy is not around, you can't bring the chatas. So, what exactly is the Kohen Gadol's chatas bull bringing? It's to atone for himself and his brother's kahanim. So, therefore, it's a chatas. And if it's a chatas, the rule is if the owner dies, it's no good. So what are you talking about? Even if you want to say that the blood is called a par, that means even after the slaughtering, it still retains its name of a par. That doesn't help the incoming Kohen Gadol. The bottom line is it's a chatas and it should be no good. Charlie, that made sense? Yeah? Okay. Just want to make sure. Amalei Rabban Barabba L'Rabba. Amrina Talmidach Amar Rabba Amram. Your Talmidim said the answer in the name of Rabba Amram. Chatos Siboru. The Kohen Gadol's bull is really a carbon sibur, a communal offering, because it's offered not just on his own behalf, but on behalf of all his fellow Kohanim. And therefore the rule is on a communal offering, it does not go to its death when the Kohen Gadol dies. Because if it belongs to the community, everyone owns it, nobody owns it. Meaning where everybody owns it, in this case, all his brothers Kahanim, it's therefore it retains its power as a chatas to atone for living people. Okay? Since its owners are still alive. Okay? So therefore, and the Robin goes and explains that the Kohen Gadol's bull is a carbon sibur, not a carbon yachid. It's not, because we learned in a Mishnah in Temura. Amaloi Rabbi Meir. Meir said we're on 58 too. Meir said to the Tanakama, okay, Ba'aloi, Par Yoma Kippur v'chavite Kohen Gadol u'b'Pesach, the par of the Kohen Gadol's chatas bull that we've been talking about. The Kohen Gadol's daily chavitin, if you remember, he brings the minchas chavitin every day. The Kohen Gadol brought half in the morning, half in the evening. We talked about this before, half in the morning and half in the evening. And his Pesach, the carbon yachid, which are all private offerings. Nonetheless, what do we see? They all override the Shabbos and the Tumah. This is only possible. This can only work if we hold that even though they have the characteristics of a private carbon, Nonetheless, they're looked at as communal because the din is Tuma is Hutra B'tzibor, and Shabbos doesn't get in the way of things that have, as we're going to see, that things are established by time. This b'moyadoi, in its time, it must be brought in its time. Afilu b'Shabbos, afilu b'Tuma. So you see from here that the Yom Kippur Chatas is a carbon tzibur. Rabbi says no good. Ula tamei ichtitani that we learned in a brayso amaloi Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yaakov said to the Tanakama, "V'aloi par helam double shel tzibur." The part of a communal era, Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. The Shiri Avodas Kachavim and the he goats of a communal idolatry. The Chagiga and the carbon Chagiga, the carbon Simcha that we bring on Yontif, okay, on Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, the carbon Tzibur that are communal offerings. Nonetheless, Ein Doichin Lo Yiseh Shabbos Lo Yiseh Tumah. These three kabbanis, the Par Elam Davar Shel Tzibur, Siriyovik Kachavim, and the Chagiga, do not override the Shabbos or the Tumah Mechlal. This must be. There must be some sort of Tanakama must hold that in fact these three carbons have a private portion in nature, and that's why they're not doicha. But this is impossible, because nobody takes the position that the par helam davar shel tzibor, the par of the communal era, is anything but a communal carbon. By definition, it's a communal carbon. The community as a whole made a mistake with regard to adultery, so it is a communal carbon. So there's no way to say that somebody must hold that it is a carbon yachid, a private carbon. Ella, the pshat in this Mishnah and Brisa as follows. L'ta'ani kama hadalei. Ramein Rab Yankov are explaining according to the opinion of the Tanakama itself. And they're showing that there's a flaw in his logic. The Shamaya the Kama Karban Tzibu Doichas Shabbos V'Satumo, for they heard him say that a carbon sima communal offering overrides the Shabbos and the Shabbos and the Tumah. The carbon yachin and a private offering and a doichelois Shabbos v'lois Tumah do not override Shabbos and the Tumah. Amaloi Remeil carbon yachin b'klolu. Remeil therefore asked them this with regard to the private offering. What's the rule that they do not override the Shabbos and the Tamei? V'haloi we see par Yom Kippur b'chavivi kohen gadol u'Pesach, but we see the Yom Kippur chatas bull which is brought by the kohen gadol for himself and the Kahanim. The Kahanim gadol's every day chavitin and his Pesach, the carbon yacharu that are private kabbanis. V'doichen is a Shabbos v'yetza Tumah, and yet override the Shabbos and the Tumah. Rabbi Yaakov carbon sibu b'klalu, and Rabbi Yaakov said to the Tanakama, with respect to the carbon sibu, the communal offerings, it is a general rule that you override the Shabbos and the Tameh. Is this true? Are you going to tell me this is true? We're on 58.3. Is this actually true? V'aloi par helem dava shel tzibor, the case of the bull of the communal era, and the Siriyah Kachavim, the egos of the communal idolatry, the Chagiga, the carbon sibu, that are actually communal offerings, and do not override the Shabbos and the Tumah. So what's going on here? Elomar says Amen Rabbi Yaakov, Nokat Hai Kol B'Yodeh. Take this rule in the hand. Kol Zaman Kavua, any offering that is a fixed time on which the Torah says now you're going to bring it. It's not a variable. There is no variable. It's stuck in time. Okay, you have to bring the carbon Pesach Erev Pesach. You have to bring the carbon on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Charlie, can you hear me? Charlie, do you hear me?
1 second.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can't hear you. 1 second. I'm
Okay.
coming back.
No problem.
It's my
No problem.
fault.
Okay. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good, Zach. How are you?
Okay, are you still in Hollywood or
No, we came back, so I
you
wanted to
came
catch you this morning.
you're so nice. You're making me feel like $1 million. No
It's,
What?
problem.
it's not a day
Charlie.
if I don't see you.
Thank you. Charlie, you back?
Back.
All right, we're back on 58.3. Okay, so back on 58.3. So
Sorry.
now we're putting a rule into place. Ella says
Hi,
Rameir.
Jeffrey.
Hello, Charlie. How are you?
All right, here we go. 58.3. So left hand column. Ella, Rameh and Rabbi Yaakov are putting a rule into place. Nekaitai Klabiyodet. Put this rule in your back pocket. Kol shezmanoi kibua. Anything whose time is fixed, i.e., the Carbon Pesach is fixed to be brought on the 14th of Nisan Erev Pesach. You got no choice in the matter. The power of the Kohen Gadol, the bull of the Kohen Gadol, has to be brought on Yom Kippur. Period. You don't have a choice in the matter. The Torah is fixing the time. Where it fixes the time, in other words, in its time, it overrides the Shabbos and any contamination. Even in a private or offering. So if I'm going to say that the bull of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is a private offering, and certainly his chavitin, the mincha offering that the Kohen Gadol brought every day, half in the morning and half at night, and certainly the Kohen Gadol's Carbon Pesach, if you want to call these a private offering, they still override the Shabbos and the Yom Tov, because the Shabbos and the Tumah, because they're fixed in time. The Torah says you must bring it, but Mayada, you must bring it. But anything whose time is not fixed. In other words, you have to bring the carbon, don't get me wrong. But you only have to bring the carbon if certain variables happen, whenever they happen. Therefore, it does not override the Shabbos or Tamar Afilupit Sibor, even in the case of a communal office. So, for an example, the par Helem Dover Shel Tzibor, the bull of an erroneous mistake made by the tzibur, by the community. Theoretically, you can go your whole life and never have a communal mistake, and that carbon will never be brought. It's only if the community shall make a mistake that a carbon known as the par Helem Dover Shel Tzibur needs to be brought. Such a carbon, even though it is a communal carbon, a carbon tzibur, nonetheless, does not override the Shabbos and it does not override the Tumah. Where this actually is applicable to us is a very interesting idea. We know, remember I've always said this about the shchita. The mitzvah is not shchita. The mitzvah is not the slaughter. The mitzvah is to eat. No. I'm talking about our food. No Zarika.
Oh, I see.
We had a barbecue yesterday, right? The big famous Boca Grove barbecue. I wish Jerry was online because we all know who's responsible for this and who's doing all the work and behind the scenes and not taking any credit for it, as usual. The tzaddik Jerry. Anyways, the halacha is shechita itself is not a mitzvah. The slaughtering is not a mitzvah because at the moment that you slaughtered it, you actually didn't do anything. The mitzvah is that if you're going to eat meat, then you need to eat kosher slaughtered meat. So it's only after I eat the barbecue that I can retroactively look back and say, oh, that's why I slaughtered the meat. That's why I slaughtered the meat. The same thing is in building a sukkah. The mitzvah is not to build a sukkah. The mitzvah is to sit in the sukkah. The building of the sukkah is only called a hechsher mitzvah, a preparation for the mitzvah. But it is only a preparation for the mitzvah only after you sit in the sukkah and make a leishev b'sukkah. Then I turn around and say, oh, that's why we allow a guy to build a sukkah. Why can a guy build a sukkah? You ever thought about it? Why can a non-Jew build your sukkah? Shouldn't be allowed to. Not allowed to. It's part of a mitzvah. The answer is at the moment that he's building it, he's only building you a clubhouse. It's only after you sit in the clubhouse on sukkahs and make the bracha leishev b'sukkah that you look back and say, oh, that's why we built it. But at the time that you built it, it wasn't that. Legally.
So you mean there's no mitzvah to build a sukkah for somebody else?
Theoretically, there isn't.
Yeah.
The point here is, until
if you don't stay in the sukkah and you don't say the bracha leishev b'sukkah, there's no mitzvah for building the sukkah.
You made a clubhouse. If you slaughtered the animal, but nobody eats the meat, did you do a mitzvah? That's the answer. It's not this is the famous question: if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it make a sound? This is the point. Right here, this is our Gemara. Since we could theoretically go an entire lifetime and never have a communal error, or never have a communal error in idolatry, etc., since they're not established, and even the Korban Chagiga, which is brought on the Oila Regel on the three festivals, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, but the Chagiga is not ma'akif. If you don't bring it, the world's not going to fall on your head. It's only brought as a carbon simcha to add joy to your carbon, to your yontif. It's not fixed in time. It's amorphous. If something happens, then I'll bring it. On an if, we're not doicha the Shabbos, we're not doicha the Tumah. That's really what's going on. Let's keep going a little further. Eisvei Abaya, says Abaya, Par v'soyer shel Yom HaKippurim she'avdu, regarding the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur that were lost before they could be offered. Somehow they decided they wanted off. And he, meaning the guy in charge, separated others in its place of the Lord Sabbath, and he gave it to the Kohen to offer them. And then the original animals were then found. Kulam Yamusu. All the original animals are left to die. Do the same thing with regard to a he-goat design for the atonement of communal idolatry, a mistake made by the community. With regard to adultery, were lost, and others were and there were replacements put in place of them. And then the originals were found. Kulam, all the originals, Yamusu died. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon Imrim, Yiru Achi Yitabu. They don't simply go ahead and you just let them die, you starve them. No, you let them graze until they develop a blemish, and you sell them. The Yiplu and their proceeds go to voluntary communal offerings, so that the Mizbeach should not be empty from any carbons. She'ein chatas siba mesa, because a communal chatas is not left to die, because there's always somebody around that can benefit from the chatas. So the Brisa speaks of the Yom Kippur chatas as a communal offering, not as a private offering. Amalei, my par, which one it's talking about over here? It's talking about the par, Helen, double shel tzibur, the bull of a communal era. Frank Dabai, what are you saying? Well, show Yom Kippur Katani, but it says clearly of Yom Kippur. It says Rabba Ki Katani. Where does it say Yom Kippur? Adis Soyer. it's talking about the goat, not the par, not the bull. It's in reference to the goat. We're now on 50A4. The bull, however, is the bull of a communal era. Okay, and it's a communal era. So therefore, according to Rabbah, the Yom Kippur bull is not a communal one. It only belongs to the Kohen and his brothers and no further. So Freit Abayava, Tanya, what we learned, Par Shel Yom Kippurim, V'Sioy Shel Yom Kippurim Shavdu, regarding the bull of the Yom Kippur and the goat of Yom Kippur that were lost before they could be offered B'Hippish Achem Tachteim, and others were they were replaced by others, and then they were found. Kulam Yamusu, all the first ones are left to die. Divi Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon Ibrahim, Yiru Aji, Abu. They should graze until they get a blemish. They should be sold. The mainland and double, and their proceeds should be used for voluntary communal offerings. I.e., that the mizbeach should not lay fallow. The Brisa clearly says Yom Kippur Chatas. What does it start off with? Partial Yom Kippurim. This Brisa says it clearly. It's a partial Yom Kippurim. Says Rabba, no. Don't say at the end because the Chatas of a Tzibur is not left to die. Ella ema shein Chatas hashutfim mesa. Say a Chatas of partners is not left to die. Chatas of partners is not left to die. However, the Yom Kippur par is considered a Chatas of partners and not a communal Chatas. Who are the partners? The Achim, Kahanim, because he's being mechaper for himself and on behalf of his brothers, Achechem and Kahanim. So all the Gadim are partners in this carbon. Says the Gemara, Mein Afkamina, what exactly is the difference? You're being semantics. A Chatas of partners and a communal Chatas has a lot of people on the Chatas, on the par. So why does one you look at it as a partnership and another one you look at as communal? Says the Gemara, the Maisu Kahanim par bohira, is that Kahanim do not bring a communal Chatas bull for an erroneous halacha ruling, and this is a rule. What it calls, because the Kahanim do not bring, if it only happened in the Kahanim. If the Kahanim were a community, it means they would also be liable for a communal error. He holds Kahanim as a group are not considered a community, that if they should make an error in judgment with regard to adultery or something else, they do not bring a Helam Tzibur, a par Helam Tzibur Shel, a par Helam Tzibur Shel, par Helam Dova Shel Tzibur. Toshma, says the Gemara further, I'll bring you another proof that there's a Tana that considers the Yom Kippur bull, the partial Yom Kippur, a carbon tzibur, or the boy Rabbi Elazar, because Rabbi Elazar inquired. We're now on Amid Beis, Nun Amid Beis 50b1, and we're going to stop shortly. Actually, we're going to stop almost right on top because it's 1:45. The Divrei Ha'im Par Yom Kippur and carbon Yachid, according to the opinion of the one who says that the Yom Kippur bull is a private enterprise belonging to him, can it be used to affect Tamura or not to affect Tamura? We once learned this before. Only a private owner can affect Tamura. Partners or community, Shutfim or the Tzibur, cannot affect Tamura. What is Tamura? That if designated animal is put there, they both become holy. And then you find the first one, that both the second animal that was being set aside as a replacement and the first one remain, both of them remain Kaidish, and there are certain limitations on what you can do with them and not do with them. Says the Gemara, Lav Michlal, the Ikalaman de Tzibur. It must mean that according to Rabbi Elazar, that somebody must hold that the carbon of Yom Kippur is a carbon tzibur, because otherwise that would be the case, because he says, according to the one that says it's a private offering, mashma, that there are others that say that the power of the Yom Kippur, of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, the bull of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is in fact a communal offering. Says the Gemara, no, back to the same answer that we gave before. Loi b'chlal de'ikal amad the shutfim. No, it just means that they're partners. And as we said before, there is a difference between partners and community. Very good. This is where we're stopping. Yes, we're stopping a moment early, but it's the beginning of Gufa. The Gemara is going to go right back into this whole conversation, and it continues straight on into tomorrow's daf. Tomorrow's daf is somewhat short. We're going to go all the way to the Mishnah on 51b, which is 51b1. It's not that long, so we should be able to get it in. Very good, everybody.